PS on creation versus evolution, a postscript. Let's start with what we begin a toddler out on. Can you imagine with me a simple tricycle miraculously coming together? And then as the toddler grows up, the tricycle evolves, changes into a push scooter, two-wheeled push scooter. And then it develops further along the way into a bicycle, a little bicycle, and then into a full-blown bicycle with gears, mind you, and then into a motorcycle, and then into a car, a four-wheeled car, and then developing wings and evolving into an airplane. Never, you say. Impossible. Likewise, could you ever imagine an explosion as mighty as the so-called Big Bang, which is also another theory, not a fact? Imagine such a mighty explosion causing all the finest parts and cogs of a wristwatch to fly together to make this wonderful, functional watch. Impossible, fantastical, nonsense, you say. And you are right. It is not just improbable, it is impossible. It wouldn't happen, no, not in a gazillion years, or even with billions of such explosions. Now, if you are an evolutionist or a theistic evolutionist listening to this, you would say what I'm saying is ridiculous, because I've been talking about inorganic things, that is dead matter. Evolution, they will say, involves organic or live things, things that grow, multiply, and mutate and change. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So now, first a simple question. What is more complex? A tricycle, a bicycle, a car? Take a complex Lamborghini car, or the human body. What is more complex? Dear friend, this human body is a million, billion, gazillion times more complex than the most complex car, or airplane for that matter, however complex it may be considered. The human body is phenomenally complex. So the evolutionist would say, it's not possible for inorganic material to evolve, but organic things, yes. So now, what we see is that modern day so-called evolutionists are using old theory and calling it science, which is pseudoscience and not science at all. Allow me to share straight from the mind and heart of a dear friend of mine, James Dillner, and I have interspersed some thoughts from myself. Please note and heed. I think I'm going to be tempted to share this section twice. Listen closely. We know from DNA science, this is the latest, up-to-date, modern, biological, true, provable, verifiable science. We know today from DNA science that things do not just change from one form to another due to outside or external influences. Now, I want to put a caveat here. That change through external influences is what we call adaptation, which is merely an adjustment, for example, to a dog growing longer hair in colder climate as opposed to a dog in the tropics. That's adaptation, change brought about by external circumstances, which is merely temporary. But from DNA science, true biological, verifiable, provable science, we learn that the difference between living organisms is due to the code for what that creature's form is, and that code is contained in the DNA molecules that make up the chromosomal strands, which are found in the nucleus of each of the cells of each living organism. So God, the divine designer, made the DNA code that in turn makes mankind totally so different from a chimpanzee. Just like, and I hear this, just like Microsoft changed the coding system from the original Windows 95, which has now eventually morphed, not by itself, not accidentally, but through the brain and the hand of human designers, intelligent designers. It is morphed, changed by changing the code. From Windows 95, we now have Windows 10 as of the year 2020. You know how that change took place in the operating system for Microsoft Word? It happened because of deliberate design by an intelligent human designer, not because the computer was switched on and off 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000 times. Dear friends, let that sink in. I'll read that now, try and make it short and punchy. We know from DNA science that things do not change from one form to another due to outside influences. That is limited to and called adaptation, which is merely an adjustment, for example, to a dog growing longer hair in colder climate as opposed to a dog in the tropics. The change between living organisms is because the code which determines what that creature's form will be is contained in the DNA molecules that make up the chromosomal strands in the nucleus of each living organism. So God created, divinely designed the DNA code that makes humankind so different from a chimpanzee. Just like Microsoft changed the coding from Windows 95, the original version, to eventually morph into or become Windows 10. It happened because of deliberate design, not because the computer was turned on and off 1,000,000 or 1 zillion times. God bless you.